Hey guys, it's Amy. Welcome back to this week's video. I hope you guys enjoy it. And we're going to talk about study abroad. I have, in my experience, I've gone abroad 3 times now. The first time was I spent 6 weeks in South Korea at a university called Hanam University. And I did their summer program called KSSP. And it was a 3-week long program, and then you could add on like a 4th week where you actually worked in an elementary school there teaching English, which was an amazing experience. So maybe I can talk more about that sometime. And then my second time, and then I traveled around with my friend for 2 weeks. The second study abroad trip that I did was I spent 3 weeks in Japan, and I studied at a university called Seisen University in Tokyo, and it was a beautiful campus in like the heart of Tokyo. It was like in this magical little alcove of trees up a hill, and it was gorgeous. And it was an amazing experience as well. And the last trip was this semester abroad that I just got back from, and I spent 4 months in South Korea back at Hanam University because I fell in love with it the first time that I was there, and I really, really wanted to go back. So I did a semester abroad, and it was amazing. But in my time doing study abroad, I have learned a couple of things about just the process of it as well as how to handle things. I am going to do an entire separate video on the visa process for Korea because it was really, really complicated, and I ended up going through a separate company to help me out because I couldn't figure it out. But that's a whole other thing. But I do have 5 tips, I think 5, sorry, that I want to share with you guys today. And I do have my handy dandy notebook with notes because I have a horrible memory and would not be able to keep track of my points. So point 1 is, I think, a common sense point, but I know quite a few people that I was studying abroad with that didn't do this, and that is research, research, research where you're going. If it's your first time going to this country and you don't know anything about it, you really need to research like the exchange rate, things like that. You need to check out like the weather and kind of exactly what to expect while you're there, as well as kind of like the political situation. Your university is obviously not going to send you to a country where you will be in danger, but you need to know what's going on in the country that you're studying in, just so that you are aware of what's happening around you. I definitely think you also need to research customs of the country that you're going to, and that just, you know, how they share meals, kind of simple things that maybe you don't think about before you get there, and then that's like a huge like culture shock. You should be aware of them before you go, or as many as you can be. So I definitely think research is a huge step because you just need to understand where you're going and kind of what to expect. You're obviously not going to be able to understand everything before you get there, but it's a good idea to understand some things. Number 2 is be okay. Point number 2 is be prepared for some level of culture shock. Culture shock, I really do think, depends on the person and the country. If you love travel and you go all over the world, you're less likely to have major culture shock. But you're still likely to have some things that you're kind of like, whoa, did not see that coming. Or sometimes that you do the American thing. Or if you're from South Korea and you're studying in America, or you're from England and studying in Peru, you're gonna be like, whoa, I'm sorry, because sometimes you're gonna do something that you normally do in your home country, that they're gonna be like, no, you can't do that here. And that is a form of culture shock, being told, you know, or being looked at like, what are you doing? And you having to realize that that's not okay where you're at. That's a form of culture shock, and everybody will experience it to some level. I thankfully had friends that are from Korea, and I had already learned a lot about the Korean culture before going to Korea the first time. So I didn't have as much culture shock with Korea or Japan because I have the same situation where I have friends from Japan. But I know friends that had major culture shock. They couldn't find foods to eat. They couldn't, you know, they had a really hard time not understanding everything around them. And they grew out of it. Like they got over their culture shock. But I definitely think that you need to be aware that there is a possibility that you will have culture shock. Just depends on the level, and that depends on the person. So just be ready for it. Okay. The third point is be prepared for stereotypes. I know that as an American, there are a lot of people here in America that have a really hard time with stereotypes, and I am not going to lie, there have definitely been times where I've had to check myself because I fall into that habit of relying on those stereotypes or believing in those stereotypes. But any person from a different country studying in another one, people are going to look at you and they're going to stereotype you too. So just be prepared for it. I know that my friends from other countries have always had problems with that. You know, people talk to them as the Asians or like the one population, and like they don't understand it, and that's not fair to them, but it happens. So as the American student in South Korea, I got a lot of stereotypes because I was blonde and from America, or I was tall and from America. And when people were so surprised when I was like, oh, I don't play sports, like football's not my thing, you know, they were kind of like, but isn't that like the American thing? And I kind of had to explain that, like, just because it's the American thing doesn't mean that it's my thing. So just be prepared for that. No harm, no foul. Explain things to people, have conversations with them. They're learning at the same time that you're learning, and it's an amazing experience to have a conversation with somebody from a different country about your country and their country, how they compare, and the stereotypes that come along with being from that country. It's a really awesome experience. So I really encourage you to not be angry or upset with the stereotypes and learn from them, because you can teach the other person something as well, and it's a cool experience. Okay, so the fourth point is to explore the history of the country. I know that a lot of my friends, when we were all in Korea, they spent a lot of time at like the clubs and the bars and doing the college life up. Like, you know, they were able to drink and party, and they were able to have that really good time with their friends, and that's awesome. And I do suggest going out and grabbing drinks with your friends from, you know, from the school that you're studying at, because it's a cool bonding experience for you. But I also suggest focusing on some of the history of the country that you're in. So going to those historical sites, wandering around the parks that the country has, exploring it on a different level than just the going to the cool, like, millennial style places. Definitely check out the history of the country that you're in, appreciate the architecture, listen to the folk stories. I went to an amazing performance when I was in Daejeon, which is where my university was at. Their orchestra they had an entire show of old folk songs. So I got to see the old traditional instruments of Korea and listen to some of these amazing, beautiful songs. The whole audience was singing along, and it was an incredible experience that myself and only 2 of my other classmates went to see, even though we were all invited to come. So I definitely think seeing those aspects of the country that you're in are a huge point. Don't just focus on the, like, shopping and, like, the, you know, when you're in Japan, don't focus on going to, like, Akihabara and Harajuku only. Yes, go to those places, see them, experience them, awesome. But don't just focus on them. Explore the old school stuff. Explore the traditional. Explore what made that country that country. There's a lot of really cool things that you might not expect, or you might never have known otherwise. When I was in Korea, I also went to I cannot remember the name of the prison at the moment, but my friend and I, when we were in Seoul, we went to a prison where during the Japanese occupation, Korean independence fighters were held. And I learned so much about the Korean War and that side of things that I never would have learned in school here in America, and I never would have learned by just hanging out with friends in Korea. So I think that you really should try and grasp a different level of the history of the country that you're in, because the only place that you're going to be able to get that level of knowledge is from that country. So I definitely want to say, enjoy the history of the country. Even if you don't really like history, there are things that you can do and see that allow you to see part of the past of the country. And I think that that's a great opportunity to learn and to really understand the culture that you're a part of at that time. And then the last point is find apps for your country. And I know that that's like totally different from like all of the other things that I've been talking about. I've been talking about experiences and history and learning from each other. But apps on your phone are a huge help. So for Korea specifically, there's an app called Kakao Talk that is a messaging app that most college students have. And so if you want to be able to communicate with your classmates, probably a good idea to download whatever messaging app that country is using. I have WeChat for my friends from China, and I have Line for my friends for Japan, and I've got Kakao Talk so that I can communicate with the people from those areas. They have Kakao Taxi. So if you're trying to catch a taxi and you don't know where anyone is, you can call a taxi. They don't really have Uber, as you know, like it's not really a thing there. In the country that I was studying in. Naver Maps, which is like a map app, but it helps you figure out what bus to take, exactly how many stops, all of it is right there in this app, and it's a huge help to kind of understand where you're going and try and figure things out. My cat is meowing again. But they also have, you know, specific translation apps for different countries, or just have Google Translate, you know, whatever you need. But I have said definitely so many times in this video, but it's like it's the only word that I can think of at the moment to like push what I'm trying to say. I would highly encourage finding apps for the country that you're in that are gonna help you get around the country. I know America has an app called Yelp. There are different versions of that for different countries. It'll help you find like food to eat and stuff that you know, that you can have if you're a vegetarian, things like that. Those kind of apps are really helpful. My cat is really loud, and I don't know if you guys can hear it, but I can, and it's driving me crazy. But I do think that having that technology aspect to help you out is a huge thing, because otherwise you could kind of be stuck at some place and not know where to go. And it's really hard to explain to your friend on the phone where you are if you don't know where you are yourself. So do highly recommend finding those apps and using them to just understand your way around. Like eventually I didn't need the app, the map app, to get from place to place unless I was going to a new place that I'd never been, and then I kind of needed it. But those places that you become accustomed to, you won't need the app eventually, but it's really good to start off with it. And I just think that they're super helpful in finding your way. I do want to say, okay, so this is kind of like an additional point 6, whatever you want to say. Do learn some of the language before you go. No, I'm not saying to become fluent in the language or anything along those lines, but I do think that you should know some of the key phrases before you go. Hello, nice to meet you, how are you, my name is, where's the bathroom? Just simple things that will show that you're willing to learn and show that you're willing to be a part of this culture that you're in. But also it's just helpful for you to know how to ask where the bathroom is, you know, how to say how much is this, things like that. It kind of goes along though with traveling in general. Like if you're going anywhere, even if you're not studying abroad, you're just traveling and you're going to a country that they don't speak your language, learn a couple of key phrases so that you can get around. It shows them that you're trying and they're more willing to help you out. So that's kind of my point 6 bonus point that I wasn't planning on adding, but I do want to say that just so that you get the best experience that you can. And on that note, that is all I have for you today, but I do want to add that the experience of study abroad is up to you. It is completely up to the person that is participating in it. You can decide to stay in your room and miss home and want to, not do anything. It's your choice to go and just do the clubs and just do the bars and hanging out with friends. It's your choice to just do the history. It's your choice. But these are just the tips that I have learned, or the suggestions that I think are really important when studying abroad, to just understand the culture and to get the most out of the experience that you have study abroad. Don't just shut yourself in your room and study. Yes, of course, do your homework, study for the tests, be a good student, but don't just focus on that. Get out, see the country that you're in, meet the people, have a great time, and study abroad will be one of the best experiences of your life, and you will never forget it. Sorry, my cat sneezed and that totally lost my train of thought. But that is what I want to leave you guys with. The experience is up to you. Enjoy it or don't. It's up to you. But that's all I have today. I hope to see you guys next time for my next video. And I hope you guys enjoyed this one. If you guys have any more questions about study abroad, please leave them in the comments down below, and I will try and make a video on those specific questions. If you guys have any suggestions of other things that you want to see, or comments about anything, let me know. If you have studied abroad, tell me about it in the comments. I'd love to hear about your experiences. And please subscribe to my channel, like my video, all of that jazz. But that is, this is goodbye for today. So yeah, check you later.